All right, welcome to Lambo's Water Sports Pitching the Big Brother. This is NFL Week 3. This is going to be NFL Sunday Night Football, which must be a game to tune in and watch out for. You got the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. By the way, the Pittsburgh Steelers are on the road in Vegas in a very tough environment. I understand it's a dome bang, but ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of concerns for both teams. Number one, is Jimmy G that guy? Look, porn star Jimmy. Is he that guy? Number two, is Kenny Pickett the answer for the Steelers? Or not just the answer? Will they fire Matt Canada? Matt Canada is not a great offensive coordinator. His play calling is very weak. I don't trust the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line, but the only reason why the Steelers will lead you into some games is because of that defense. And I trust that defense, but when I make this pick, I think it's a very, very tough pick to the point where I did not put this in my DraftKings bet where I could possibly win $4,000 off $10. And this is one of the games I didn't put it on because I'm not very confident betting wise. Now, I'm gonna make it some competition. But in this game, as much as I hate the Steelers, I'm gonna take Pittsburgh on the road. I trust that defense, and I think the Raiders O-line continues to struggles. Now, by the way, Patrick Peterson has to somewhat be on Devontae Adams. But like I said, he's a little bit older. Devontae Adams is still one of the best wide receivers in the league. I have to take Pittsburgh based off defense because I think the Raiders will have the lead. But Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin, they're going to keep fighting despite the struggles on offense.
Gotcha. So we are starting off the week on the opposite end of both games. I'm rolling with the Raiders. And this game is definitely a pick 'em, like it's a toss up. So everything you said I could agree with. But at the same time, even if, Patrick Peterson is on Devontae, I think Devontae wins the majority of those routes at this point in both of their careers. Like obviously Devontae's still at the top of the game, whereas Patrick has taken a slight step down, still one of the best in the game. I'm not disrespecting or anything. But Jacoby Myers practiced yesterday and he practiced today. So it looks like he's going to be back from a concussion scare. And, we saw in week 1, he was the wide receiver that drove the offense. Like Devontae's always going to be good, whether it's making guys, miss and he gets his 6 catches or whatever. But on those days when he's doing that, he's basically acting as a decoy for someone else to get open more often. That's what we saw week 1 with Jacoby Myers having a breakout game. So I'm not entirely sure because I might be wrong, but isn't Minka out as well for the Steelers?
I think he might be questionable. He might be questionable.
Gotcha.
Questionable to doubtful. He might play.
So,
he might not.
Right. So in the circumstance that he doesn't play, I just think that the wide receiver core of the Raiders overmatches that secondary a little bit. Watt's going to get his sacks. Like that's not a question here. He's going to get his numbers. But he got it in week 1 and they got smacked. Obviously that was the 49ers. This is the Raiders, much different teams. But I just think, the injuries are what's leading me towards the Raiders because it really is 50-50. Both offenses don't look great, but you have a star on both sides, Devontae and Pickens. So, it's a toss-up, but I'm rolling with the Raiders.
Josh McDaniels, your job might be on the line by week 7. I understand that the owner is giving you some part of ownership or whatnot. But ladies and gentlemen, I think Raiders fans are very impatient. I like the Raiders when John Gruden was there, except the emails he sent probably in the past. I'm not sure if it's true or not, but it's not what I'm here to discuss. I like the Raiders with John Gruden. I think John Gruden brought passion. Not that Josh McDaniels doesn't bring passion, but Josh McDaniels is probably one of the great offensive coordinators. I'd take him as offensive coordinator any day. Look what he did with Mac Jones before he left the Patriots. But him as a head coach is just a little different, except especially with the Tim Tebow. I'm gonna take Tim Tebow in the draft. Like please, come on now. this ain't Florida Gators 2008. Like, come on now. But I, I have concerns. I mean, does Josh McDaniels even have an OC, or is he calling the plays? I understand he wants control of the play calling, but it's hard for the Raiders to run the Patriots offense. I mean, you have to have certain pieces to actually run the Patriots offense. You just have to have the exact correct pieces, and it's just not there. And the reason why it's not there, that the talent's there, all right. But did fans forget that Josh Jacobs rushed for -2 yards last week? -2 yards. I mean, he barely gave me fantasy numbers. He gave me 9 points of fantasy numbers because he had 51 yards receiving. He had -2 yards rushing. Okay, he was the leading rusher last year. The only way that the Raiders will win unless he gets 100 yards from the Pittsburgh Steelers, 100 yards, at least 70. But he needs to get 100. It has to start on the. That's the only way they're gonna win. I mean, what you gonna do?
Well,
You
the Steelers' strong point of their defense is the D line and linebacking course. That's essentially their run defense, and so going into the game that you're not going to be able to win if you only stick to the ground, because that's what they're best at defending. So I think this, like I said, it's a toss up, so I could see it going either way, but I think that, them already being prepared to try and win a game without their offense, without like their running back playing at a super high level, like getting him the ball, he -2 yards and he still got you 9 points. So I'm assuming that's what, like 5 catches and 40 yards or vice versa, whatever it is. So like that's still getting him in a, in open field to make some plays and help the team out. And like I already explained, if their secondary is shorthanded, like it seems to be without Minka, then I think it could be down to the quarterbacks and the wide receiving cores. And I like the Devontae factor, I guess, a little bit more than the.
I just have concerns for the Raiders offensive line because what does Jimmy G gonna do when he face pressure? Is he gonna try to make a play and throw an interception, or is he gonna fall down like he did in San Francisco? Remember what we both said, especially what you said weeks ago. Jimmy G is a game manager. Porn star Jimmy is a game manager. He do just enough. Doing it just enough against a good Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line, like you just mentioned, it ain't gonna be good enough. You can't do just good enough. All right. I understand the Steelers have a somewhat mediocre offense. It can go off one day and it can suck next week. I get that. But doing just enough is not going to work. Jimmy G is going to have to get in his bag. He's going to have to get in his chips. He's going to have to steal something out of Josh McDaniels' playbook, and he's going to have to be aggressive with the pass game. Now, he's going to have to pass the ball maybe at least about 30, 35 times against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is, it's better than 54 from Mac Jones. But my point is it's a Jimmy G factor. Like, he sucked last week. He was good week 1. How good is he going to be this week? Like, it's just the Jimmy G factor just plays up, down, up, down. I mean, I don't know what to expect out of Jimmy G, so I'm not confident. Do the Raiders have?
I think in this game, the two quarterbacks that you're comparing, and obviously it's not just on the quarterback to win the game, but I'm taking Jimmy right now over Kenny Pickett. Like, I don't really think I'm questioning that decision very much. Like, I'm making it, and I'm sticking to it. Like he didn't play well last week. He only threw the ball 50%. The interception was one of the ugliest I've ever seen. And it's not like when I saw that, I was like, oh, Kenny, like you never do that. I was like, there's Kenny, like I think in another game, like down the line, and we're having a similar conversation, I will go the opposite way against the Raiders because I do think that there's a lot of quarterbacks that are better than Jimmy. I just don't think Kenny is the one. He's going to be under a lot of pressure as well with what the Raiders bring, on the D line and in their linebacker room. And, like their secondary isn't the best, but it's not like you need an elite secondary to hold down Kenny Pickett. So, I mean, in other games, I think that reasoning would be spot on. But I mean, he's got the 32nd ranked QBR through 2 games. He's got the worst QBR amongst starters in the NFL, and he threw the ball 50% last week. Granted, to a good defense, but like the Raiders' defense isn't awful. I mean, it wasn't good last year, but it's not awful. So like, I don't know. If it's between quarterbacks, I'm taking Jimmy. And if it's between who's got more on the offensive side, I'm taking the Raiders too. So,
well, I think the Steelers' game plan, even though I don't trust Matt Canada, I think they'll have to somewhat run the ball with Najee Harris, and they're going to use Najee Harris more. They can't do that two-back set because I don't know why the other running back is getting 40% of the carries and Najee's getting only 60. So there's something going on, like you said, last week along with that as well. So that's the only way that the Steelers can have some hope and have some dominance. But it's going to come out to heart. It's going to come out to Mike Tomlin. Because like I said, Mike Tomlin may have a losing game or losing record within a few weeks. But in this game, this is going to be the game that maybe could, I wouldn't say break their season, but maybe down the road, this could be one of the games where like, hey, you had a chance to win this one. We didn't get the job done. So these could be one of these games. That's why these games are interesting to talk about. But as if Lamb's Water Sports, because we have a Monday Night Football doubleheader to talk about. Even though I put the wrong team in my notes, and you must have forgot it was your birthday on your doubleheader, by the way. But Monday Night Football, 2 games again is what we're talking about next episode. You have the Eagles versus the Buccaneers. Oh, yes. Jalen Hurts versus Baker Mayfield. Both quarterbacks played at Oklahoma. I mean, man, that's great. And then you have the rematch of the Super Bowl in 2021. The Rams versus the Bengals. Oh, man, this is going to be a good one. And I might flip the table with my picks again. But you'll find out in 5 minutes of Lambo Sports, featuring Big Brother.